If you were to ask me who the best college football coach is right now, it'd probably be split between three or four different coaches right now. It'd probably be Kurt Signetti would be my answer, but I'd also have to give credit to Kirby Smart, and dare I say it, dare I admit it, Ryan Day would be up there too, although he hasn't quite accomplished everything that you'd think he should be accomplishing with the talent he has, but that's a conversation for another day. I say that because there's a lot of questions like that this offseason. I think you could ask me, and I'd say, well, there's this guy over here, but there's also this guy over here, best defensive line in college football. Well, this team's got a lot of talent. Oregon looks really good for this year, for instance, but I'm also hearing great things about Indiana. My answers would probably be something along those lines. But if you were to ask me who the most polarizing player in college football is right now, my answer would be very clear and simple. It's Bryce Underwood. And I think looking around the college football content creator world and seeing what people are posting online, seeing what people are saying in interviews, and just hearing some of the quotes, it seems like no one out there has a neutral opinion on Bryce Underwood heading into the 2026 college football season. And that kind of comes with the title of being Michigan's starting quarterback, right? The second you commit to a team, a program like Michigan that's as prestigious and storied and has as long of a history as it has and the blue blood status that it has, well, Michigan, let's admit, has a ton of fans. It's also got a ton of haters. It's also got a ton of detractors. It's also got a lot of people that no matter what you do as a starting quarterback for the University of Michigan, they're going to question your abilities because, well, frankly, they can't wait to see your downfall. And need I remind people of what education I have or what my speciality is outside of recording episodes about my favorite sport behind a microphone? I can't help but think of things in this way. People sometimes tend, and not even sometimes, the research has shown time and time again in the world of psychology, which is where I do have my degree, that the field I do operate in, people see what they want to see and they hear what they want to hear. That's been proven time and time and time again. But what's interesting to me, and what really caused me to make this video this morning, is the fact that I'm also seeing some Michigan people out there now, people in Michigan circles, questioning Bryce Underwood's ability, questioning whether he's even going to be the starting quarterback for the University of Michigan's football program throughout the season. And not even questioning, kind of straight up doubting. Recently, in an interview, and this is what caused me to make this video, one Steve Deese was on Isaiah Hole's show, and it made the statement somewhere along the lines of, if Bryce Underwood doesn't play very well or underperforms in his first few games, he'll likely get benched for one Tommy Carr. And while that sounds like a very interesting, kind of bold statement on its face, I also can't help but react in a way that's, well, that just sounds like a statement you could make about any player. And it's interesting that we're making it about this player in specific because, like I said just a second ago, if Bryce Underwood underperforms, if he plays really badly, I would kind of expect him to be benched for a bit, either for part of a game or an entire game or maybe even a couple games. The same way I would expect Jordan Marshall to be benched for a while in place of Savion Hyder if Jordan Marshall is really struggling and fumbling the football and not seeing the right gaps and, getting tackled behind the line frequently. I'd expect the same of Inaueta or, Zeke Berry or Jair Hill or anyone else on the defense, even John Henry Daly for that matter, who we just did a video, ranting and raving about. But I find it interesting that we're making comments like that about Bryce Underwood, and I feel like in some ways we're kind of buying into the narrative that's being written by people, well, frankly, outside of the realm of Michigan football. And yes, while some of them, like Urban Meyer and Eric Weddle, have had some access because they're friends with Kyle Whittingham, the head coach of this team, I can't help but think of the place we're in right now, the spot we're in on the college football calendar. If you want to look purely at the data and the film and the evidence, Bryce Underwood looks like he's exactly where I would expect him to be at this point in his college football tenure. And now I will admit, he is definitely a victim of over-promising and under-delivering, and that's both, some of it's his fault with the quotes he's given about thinking he's the best Michigan player to ever put on the maize and blue uniform. Some of his quotes are like, "Oh, buddy, we should maybe dial it back a little bit when it comes to the hype. Maybe don't overestimate your abilities on the college football field. Maybe show a little bit of humility." But I find it interesting that it's almost like we're giving more weight to 9 passes that were thrown in the spring game. In a spring game, by the way, that I went back and watched the film, and we'll probably do it on this channel here. I noticed there were some very questionable play calls in that spring game that really had me thinking as to whether there was even really a solid plan in the spring game, or it was one of those spring games that you see a lot of college football teams run. And this is kind of where I've landed on this, where they just kind of threw the balls out there and never really called a structured offense. It was just guys go out there and play. And then that's fine. But when you analyze the performance of that spring game and don't take that into account, well, you'll think Bryce Underwood's a terrible quarterback. And if you believe what Eric Weddle had to say after seeing just 1 or 2 practices, well, you're going to think Bryce Underwood's a terrible quarterback. And if you believe what Urban Meyer has to say about him not having a quarterback's coach and Kyle Whittingham and company having quote-unquote concerns, well, you're going to think Bryce Underwood is a terrible quarterback. But again, if you watch the film from last year, and if you watch his film from high school, and if you read the recruiting reports, and you watch videos by trusted quarterback analysts like Brooks Austin, Max Brown, Jordan Palmer, people like that, you get a different picture. And that's why I say he's the most polarizing figure in college football right now. Because there are people that are still incredibly high on this kid, and I think it's the people, in this case, that are a little bit more rational and that are taking into account all of the data and not just what they've seen in person or what they've happened to hear. And I think that's the better approach here. You want all of the data. That's how any logical, rational human being, I would think, would look at something like this. Because I went back and watched the tape out of curiosity, and I still see the promise. I still see the vision of a great college quarterback. I think, again, it's just a case of Bryce Underwood having come into the school with the $12 million of NIL money from, the billionaire donor whose name escapes me right now, Larry Ellison. There you go. I remembered it just in time. And, the promise of being a 5-star number 1 QB in his class, number 1 player in his class. And I think some people, myself included, thought that just meant he was going to come in here day one and be a pretty damn good college quarterback. Well, it turns out there's a learning curve. And we all should have known this. Bryce should have known this. Everyone should have known this. But again, the people that have been analyzing his play and kind of considering that learning curve, considering where he's at as a quarterback, all say he's kind of right where he needs to be at this moment. That he, like many freshmen, college quarterbacks coming straight out of high school and starting, needs to learn how to read college defenses, needs to learn how to figure out and process the windows that are available to throw into at the college level, because they're tighter, smaller, shorter windows in terms of duration as to how long a wide receiver will be open. You're going to get different looks in pre-snap compared to post-snap. You're no longer playing against high schools that are like, well, we're a cover 2 team. We're just going to largely play cover 2, and maybe every once in a while we'll mix it up and play some man cover 1. You don't get that in college anymore, and I think that right in there, in and of itself, shows me that Bryce Underwood is definitely not a quarterback that we should kind of just give up on and assume that he's going to lose his starting job to a freshman. By the way, a freshman who we can't guarantee isn't going to make some of the same mistakes because he himself is a true freshman. And we just saw a 5-star number one quarterback in his class last season struggle as a true freshman. I know Tommy Carr had what looked like a really good spring game, and it was a really good spring game. But number one, if you watch the film, and I went back and watched the film, he played against a defense that was just doing what a high school defense would do, as I just described. They played cover two all day. They kind of mailed it in that spring game, honestly, in a lot of their play calls, because I think, again, they were just kind of going through the motions of getting the spring game out of the way, which is frankly what a lot of college programs do these days. We haven't seen a lick of Tommy Carr in actual in-game action against defenses that are really trying to stop him. And yet many people are saying, well, if Bryce Underwood underperforms, Tommy Carr is just going to take his job. And I think, frankly, that's a bit absurd. Because what gives me hope and what gives me promise for Bryce Underwood going forward is everything that he needs to work on is the stuff that you would expect a college quarterback of his age and his experience to need to work on. Because this kid can throw the ball a country mile. He's got the arm strength of an NFL quarterback at just 18 going on 19 years old. He's got the mobility of some of the greats, as we've seen, on the highlight reels over the past season and going back into his his high school career. He's got the athleticism, and he's got a feel for the game of when to take off and run and when not to. Now, sometimes he makes poor decisions, and last season he certainly did. He turned the ball over a bunch. He made mistakes, and I'm going to sit here and say that Bryce definitely has to play much better this season. And like I said earlier, if he does play extremely poorly against Western Michigan, Oklahoma, and UTEP to start the season, especially with those two cupcake non-conference games at the beginning of the season, I'm all here for him getting benched. But I don't think he's going to be, because I do think he's going to develop, and I do think he's going to get better, and I do think he's going to learn from his mistakes. And we kind of, as fans, need to give him an opportunity to do so before we kind of write this off as, well, Bryce Underwood's going to play like we saw in the spring game, and he's going to get replaced by Tommy Carr. Because frankly, again, I think that's kind of absurd. This kid has all the talent in the world. It's just raw talent right now. It needs to get molded. He needs to be shaped. He needs to be pointed in the right direction. And well, what has been the entire point of every Michigan channel and every Michigan person this offseason, and even some of the national analysts? What's the biggest take, the biggest, most popular take everyone has had about Michigan football heading into this season? Is that they had a massive coaching upgrade. I think it's pretty logical or rational, to think that, to come to the conclusion that that coaching staff is going to help Bryce Underwood improve, right? I think you're going to see a leap from Bryce Underwood this year, and that has a lot to do with how I feel about this team overall heading into 2026, and why I don't think you'll see him at any point in the season get benched and replaced by a true freshman, because I don't think that's going to happen, because I think Bryce Underwood's going to improve. And call me an optimist, call me whatever you want to call me regarding this. Say I'm overlooking Eric Weddle's comments or Urban Meyer's comments, or this or that, or whatever somebody out there on another channel says. I can't help but think of I can't help but consider what my eyes are telling me when I watch the film. This kid's still a complete package. It's just raw talent that needs to be molded. I'd have much bigger concerns if he was promised as this mobile, high-level, elite quarterback talent who got to Michigan football and couldn't run and wasn't actually as fast as he was built to be and didn't actually have the arm strength that he was built to have, because those aren't things that you can teach. Everything that Bryce Underwood needs to work on, everything that Bryce Underwood kind of lacks in right now, I should say, are things that can be taught. And that's what gives me hope. And that's what makes me think that Bryce Underwood will be a much better quarterback in 2026. Now, do I think he's going to be the best quarterback in the Big Ten? Do I think he's going to be a borderline Heisman candidate? Do I think he's going to be, an all conference player or anything like that? No, absolutely not. He's going to be a true sophomore. He's still going to make some mistakes out there. I'd bet that he's still going to throw 5, 6, 7 interceptions a season. But I think in this system, in Jason Beck's system, with better quarterback coaching, with a better head coach, and what I think will be a better defense in a lot of ways. One, there's going to be less weight on his shoulders. And two, he's going to have some direction, which is something he has not had yet in his college football career. So those are my thoughts on Bryce Underwood heading into 2026. As of right now, we've still got another month and a half before the season starts. So I'm likely to make more content about Bryce as more things come out as we get into fall camp, which is another point I wanted to make in this video, by the way. We haven't even gotten into fall camp yet. People are basing these opinions largely on, what limited time they have in the summer to work out, in off-season workouts and things like that. Maybe we should pump the brakes here is pretty much what I'm saying. And let's evaluate again when we get to fall camp and we start hearing real reports. But until then, as always, be kind to other people out there.